Yes, good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Hello and welcome to Further Together, enriching your relationships, creating a better future.
Future.
And this is another week, and this episode we've been waiting for it. I know we've been receiving text messages. People were asking, "What is it that you want to bring?" and what exactly do you want to talk about?
Yep.
So it's a packed week.
It is a packed week. I'm so much looking forward to what our guest would discuss with us tonight. We promise tonight to be a night of deliverance and a night of great insight into issues that we may not discuss a lot of the times. But what we do here at Further Together, we bring those issues to light. These are challenges that are faced by some of us within the community, amongst married people, and we have to talk about porn issues, porn addiction, porn problems. It's good we talk about it.
Yeah, and some of the people were saying, you know what, this doesn't affect much the Christian community,
Mm,
but I'm glad that statistics shows that even among the Christian community,
yeah.
this is a challenge. Welcome, guys. Show us by sending the thumbs up, the messages, the hearts, and I would like you to share with your friends, share with your family if you care. I know we are. Uh-huh. Mary, yeah, right on time. Greetings, Mary. How are you? How is South Africa? Good to see you. So South Africa have just joined us, and I know some people are joining in. As you join in, please share with
Share.
friends, share with family, share with those around you. Let them know that we have a very crucial topic, and we have invited an expert in this area. You know, the man who is coming has been working in this area for almost 40 years dealing with issues of I would say it's emotional infidelity, you know. Yeah, it's somehow infidelity because you're cheating on your partner, isn't it?
It is. And I'm just so excited that Mark has been in the industry. He is a certified marriage coach. So we are talking of an expert. He's got 40 years experience and he will give us a lot of enlightenment and insight. So guys, do tag your friends, tag your family, let them join in. All the single couples, they should come on board as well because this is an issue that is affecting a lot of people. And I think statistics shows that about 56% of divorces, people cite that it may be as a result of porn addiction. So it's a serious issue that we need to discuss about here at Further Together.
Yes, yes. Uh, if you're on Facebook, just tell us that you're watching us on Facebook because there's a notice which is coming here. All right. Yes, we are red. We are there. Let's bring the man, Mark. Uh, Welcome, Mark Jala.
Hello, Priscilla. Hello, Kutsi.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. It's a beautiful day here in Virginia, in the U.S. So we're having nice sunny weather, about mid 85. So
Yes, same here in London. It's sunny. We enjoying summer. It's not very hot, but you know it's okay for London. And how have you been during this quarantine period? Were you sheltering in, and how did you manage?
I'm doing fine. I work from an office that doesn't have a whole lot of people around it, so it's easy to stay socially distanced. And I see a lot of people out and about. They're wearing their masks and trying to at the stores, trying to do that social separation. And it seems to be working. I mean, there seems to be spikes here and there, but I'm healthy. I'm very blessed in that area. So I have, I'm pleased to be able to be here today and share some great information with everyone.
Yes, we are also happy to have you. You know, we are quite busy, especially this season of the year, consultations and all this stuff. But thank you so much for affording us your time coming on this platform. And guys, if you're watching right now, would you please share with your friends, tag your friends that the program have started, and we want you and those around you to benefit.
If you can, do watch it with your partner, or just send them a link. They can watch it from wherever they are. My day, thank you for joining us all the way from Nairobi. So we've got Nairobi, we've got Zimbabwe,
No,
South
no, no,
Africa,
Namibia.
Namibia.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for tuning in, guys.
Yes. So today we are talking about a very crucial topic. We'll be talking about pornography, and it's a big issue amongst those who are married. Even the single ones as well. They're entangled in the issue of pornography. And we have invited Mark Jala all the way from Virginia, United States of America, to come and share with us. But before Mark, we dive into the discussion, our viewers would like to know whether your sharing or your discussion on this topic, is it out of passion? Is it something that you have been involved in?
A little bit of everything. So yes, I was involved with porn in years past. It was during my when I was single, and I came across, I guess like a lot of men, looking for sexual satisfaction, and it was when I discovered that it wasn't serving me, it wasn't serving my higher purpose, that I felt that I needed to find some answers to it. And so that's when I started doing research for myself and looking to try to stop it, because I had the same issues that most men have, is that they look to common ways to quit cold turkey, or they hear, this is a habit. So the way to change any habit is to, when you get triggered or you have an urge, you think about something else. You try to focus your mind onto another topic. That doesn't work very well with pornography. And so, so I had to do a lot of research, and it took years really to discover what it finally takes to do that. And then as I do my marriage coaching, I found that even though they didn't bring it up as a topic or as something that was affecting their particular marriage, that they had other issues. And ultimately those issues later on, as I would dig into it and ask some really hard questions, would the man finally have to admit that yes, he was looking at porn. So there are not just mental aspects where it affects our thought processes, but it also affects men and women physically. Once the wife finds out that the husband is watching porn, there are mental and physical characteristics that how it affects her. So I was finding out that more and more couples were affected by this, oftentimes as a secret. The man would not know, or she would not know, and ultimately they, is something that would come out later on. But we do know from, a variety of studies that when we look at the divorce rate, about 56% of all divorces do cite porn as a major reason for the divorce. It's not necessarily the reason, but it is a major factor that led to that. So it is a serious, serious topic.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing your experience on that. So we are talking with a person that is not only passionate about the subject, you have the experience and you've come out, and that's why you can share with our viewers tonight. Can you just give us a quick overview on what you think the impact of pornography is to marriages? Obviously, you did it when you were single, but you're working with couples. What would you think is a quick overview of the impact?
Well, the first tip or the first overview piece is that there is hope. I mean, that is the number one key, is that there is hope for couples that are experiencing porn in their marriage. It may not seem like it right now. It may appear hopeless, but throughout today's call, we're going to cover a lot of information that's going to give you that information that you need to finally be able to quit permanently. And that's the key, and what to be looking for. But when we talk about porn, we have to look at what is it really, and how pervasive is it out there? you'd be surprised, most people, that, and it's not even listed on many of these internet sites that track usage, like how much traffic does Netflix get, or how much do certain, like the Google search engine. But the porn sites oftentimes take 8 out of the top 10 sites over all traffic worldwide. It is absolutely massive how much that the sites, how much traffic they get, and it comes from a wide variety of ages, both men and women. But one thing that we do need to point out is that men are subject to it to a much, much higher degree. Studies show that men look at porn 500% more than women do. And part of that is because men are more visual creatures. We are created differently. And so men look at things, it's like to take a guy over to a friend's barbecue cookout that has a brand new barbecue. Well, he's going to drool over that new shiny object and that new, what it looks like. See how a man looks at other cars or other houses and things like that. Men tend to be very visual. So the visual stimulation of pornographic images and videos, men are highly attractive to. Men have a hard time quitting because oftentimes there is a misunderstanding of what it takes to ultimately to quit porn. The attempts that they try to make often fail, and which walks them through several stages, which we'll talk about shortly. But at the end, many men just end up hopeless. They feel that there is not a way to fix them, or they feel so angry about themselves that it creates a lot of issues, and that leads to complications within the marriage. But the most important thing is, again, that there is hope. There are ways to quit porn, permanently. And this is something that, as we talk about, it's something that doesn't affect just the men, but we have to take a look at what it does also to the wife and to the marriage relationship. And that's another element that is often forgotten.
Oh yeah. So is it a man problem alone? The issue of pornography, does it affect men alone?
No, women, especially these days, more and more younger women are looking at porn as a way to stimulate themselves. They're looking at, when they are in a relationship, looking for new things to do to spice up the bedroom. But the main difference is a woman not being as visual as men. A woman can turn off porn and never go back. Whereas a man has a hard time doing that. There are different techniques that a man has to use in order to stop looking at porn.
Awesome. Can we just go into couples that may want to get involved together, or rather couples that are getting involved in watching porn together, and probably with the hope that it will spice up their sex life, so they do it together? What would you think are some of the dangers of doing that if a couple joins together to do that?
Well, the big thing is that the way it affects the man is that when he's watching pornography, there are several things going on in that process. And we have to take a look at the facts. And so here's one of the first things. There is not a single study ever that indicates that pornography has any long-term benefits to a marriage. Zero. There are countless research and countless studies for decades that show the dangers of porn. So oftentimes I do come across people, and this is one thing that we need to address, is that there are a lot of people out there, especially some younger folks, who are saying that, I looked at this, I see a study that says that, porn is good for a man. It will reduce prostate cancer. It reduces stress. It reduces anxiety. There are, many couples that in the early stages of their relationship may look at porn to benefit their relationship, that, try to spice things up in the bedroom. But the funny thing about it is that when we look at the same people who were in part of that study, and then look at what, poll them 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later, we find that none of those couples are together. We also find that when those who indicated that it was positive, they all came back and said, no, long term, yes, short term, it was fine. Long term, it killed the marriage. And so there isn't any study to benefit the marriage long term. The other part of it is, and in fact, I just got into a squabble on Facebook with someone the other day who was quoting this one report and saying, look, it helps men reduce prostate cancer. And so that's why I'm buying that.
Really?
Yeah.
But the thing, so there is, in that regard, there is a mixture of reports and studies that say, some of them do say that, but again, it's not the porn that is reducing the prostate. It's the ejaculation. It's the orgasm part. And so that's one of the very key, thing that needs to be mentioned there is that it's not, they don't talk about porn. It's what they do after they're watching porn. And the same goes with reducing anxiety and reducing stress. Porn doesn't do any of that. It's the orgasm, it's the ejaculation, it's what happens, when after they watch the porn. And so I just have to encourage everyone, don't, be very careful of some of the things that you look at, because all the benefits that they claim porn has is a side benefit of what happens after orgasm. It's not the porn itself. So going back to the relationships. So this is what, one of the things that when a man looks at porn, what happens to him? And so we have to look at certain facts. And this is how I had learned how to stop, many years ago, was that because when just consider how we develop memories. So in our brains, we have these neural pathways. So someone driving to work, or they taking a trip, if they do that frequently, we know that in the brain that there are these neural pathways that are created. And over time of the same repetition, those pathways become bigger and stronger. And sometimes the person will then say, well, you know what? I could drive this in my sleep. Well, and part of that is correct, because the neural pathway has become so big, so strong that it's part of who they are, and that you probably could drive that same road, almost asleep, because they've done it so often. The same thing happens when a man watches pornography. When they look and watch the similar images, watch the same kinds of things over and over and over again, these neural pathways are created. And the term that they use is it creates a superhighway. And so anytime you see an image, even resembling that, it could be from TV. It could be from, some of the cable TV shows. It could be someone walking down the street that triggers that particular pathway. And all of a sudden, you've got an urge, you've got a trigger that is hard to stop. So there is that element. Another key element are the brain chemicals that are involved. So this is something. So what happens when someone watches pornography and then follows through to orgasm is that there are brain chemicals involved that enhance that whole environment. So you've got dopamine rushes, you've got the oxytocin, the cuddle hormone. So that when people hold hands or when they hug, the oxytocin in the brain is increased, and it brings out euphoria. Well, the same thing happens during orgasm. And that's what, one reason why men love to do that so often, because they're getting this euphoric feeling. Testosterone is increased. There's so many opiates involved. There's other things going on that embolden and burn in images that they see on the screen into their brain. And so it becomes kind of like a toxic mix where anytime that kind of image appears, they become stimulated and that euphoria takes over. So it is a very happy experience for men, and that's something, one of the reasons why it is so difficult to quit. But in the relationship, as he's watching that, what is he doing? He's fantasizing about somebody else. So in a marriage relationship, he loses respect for the wife. He loses intimacy with her. One of the big things that happens, and this is how I came across this with couples who would not admit that porn was in their marriage, was when the wife would complain, well, you know what? He's not the same in bed anymore. It's becoming sex. It's not intimacy. And there's a huge difference between intimacy and just plain sex. So the porn watcher, it becomes sex. There's no intimacy because it's just images. You're not feeling that person. You're not touching that person. But the real danger comes, and this is the thing that most men have a hard time grasping, but they catch it when they hear this, is that it can also cause erectile dysfunction. Because what happens? He's trying to have sex with his wife, but he can't because it's not the images that have given him this euphoria before. Yeah, so now he cannot perform. He cannot have sex with his own wife until he starts fantasizing about these other women. She knows it. Ask any woman who experiences this. She knows that he is not experiencing this with her, is that there's something else going on. And then look at the emotional damage that does to a woman, that her own husband is having to think about other women, other environments, and that just loses all trust, creates frustration, creates anger. The marriage relationship is very well harmed, and then she becomes damaged in that once she understands that he's watching porn, it's been shown that she develops post-traumatic stress disorder like symptoms. It's hard for her to go to sleep. She's constantly thinking about what is he doing, or when they do try to make love, who is he thinking about? What happens to a woman's psyche when that happens? I mean, there is real harm and real damage here. And this is why porn is so destructive to a marriage.
So Mark, is it true, or it's just a myth that men say they watch porn so that it can sustain their erection for a longer time? It helps to sustain erection during sex. How far true is that?
It helps them, but here's the point: it gets to where they cannot get an erection with their own wife, and the only way to get the erection then is to think about the pornographic images. So yes, it will do that, but he's got to break out of that, because that's not intimacy with his own wife. So while yes, it is true that sometimes he has to have that fantasy, he's got to think about these other images, the videos or the sex acts that he's watching in order to get an erection to have sex with his wife, but it's not intimacy. And so ultimately it hurts the marriage ultimately. So the key is he has to stop with the porn. And that is the difficulty many men have, because now there's that superhighway, there's the brain chemicals, there's his own performance. Most guys are very concerned about their performance in bed. And when he has to imagine this other stuff, then he tries to put his imagination into overdrive. And so it leads to more and more watching of porn in order to try to maintain levels that he has been accustomed to.
Yes, thank you for explaining that to us. Obviously, you're highlighting the issue of that emotional disconnection, because when it becomes sex and there's no intimacy, that emotional connection is not there anymore. So I would like for you to go into how does it impact the man himself? Obviously, you are telling us of how it impacts the woman. How about the man himself who is watching porn?
Okay, so I'm sorry, say that again.
With the women, you're saying that once they realize that the man is suffering porn addiction, they can suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder like symptoms. So how
Correct.
does man get affected as well? In what kind of symptoms do they have?
Men will experience a lot of internal conflicts.
Mm,
So what happens to a man is that he's got this image of himself. He's got this idea of who he is in the universe, in the world. He's got these ideas, but it oftentimes leads to a conflict where he doesn't really, he knows he's not living up to his own standards. He's not living up to the standards of his faith. He's not living up to the standards of his wife. And so that manifests then as anger, as frustration. It could be he could give up, on certain things, and just life is the way it is. So there's a lot of ways that it does affect the man. In that ultimately he knows in his mind that he's not the husband that he wants to be. And so imagine you're living a dual life. Many men, when they really start to think about it, they're leading this, and they want to be one thing, but they know that there's something different. And ultimately that just degrades on him, and it can manifest in so many different ways. Defensiveness. They come home, he interprets something a little bit different, so he becomes defensive, attacks his wife. He could be, more angry. And a lot of times, and part of that was with me. I became very angry because I wasn't living the life that I thought that I should be living. I wasn't serving my God the way that I wanted to. I wasn't serving, other people the way I wanted to. And so that, got to me to the point where it made me very, very angry. And it wasn't until I was over it when the anger was like a monkey off my back. It was just a burden released that then it brought out to the public a whole new me. It brought out someone who could bring happiness, who could bring joy to other people. Whereas before I would jump and I would get angry at the slightest little thing.
mm,
Mhm. Thank you very much, Mark. If you are just joining us on Further Together right now, we have Mark Jala from Happy Marriage Coaching. He's a coach, and mainly certified coach. Mainly he deals with the areas of helping people to quit from pornography. So if you are just joining us, Mark is with us from United States of America, from Virginia in particular. And he's giving us nuggets, tips, and also demystifying some of the things that people have or papers, some of the papers and bloggers do put and say this is the truth. So this is we were getting into it on a Christian perspective as well as on a scientific perspective.
Yes.
Mark, you always say porn is not the problem.
Yes.
If porn is not a problem, what is?
That is an excellent point. And this is what leads to so many programs out there that do not work, is that whether trying to quit cold turkey, going to counseling sessions, it could be a pastor's session, it could be the 12-step programs, it could be a number of different things. So one key fact that we have to understand is that when we look at porn, a lot of times people call it an addiction. Technically, it is not an addiction. It is a compulsion, and there is a minor difference there. An addiction is a brain disorder, oftentimes called a disease, that leads to changes in the brain chemistry that leads to someone that becomes who they are. So, for example, when someone is an alcoholic, or that is a disease that is called an addiction, and that is something that when they go through certain programs, they could quit for a period of time, but then when it is in front of them, or if they were to have some alcohol, then they could relapse back into that and that becomes part of who they are. As you know, you talk to an alcoholic, they describe themselves that way. I am an alcoholic. Someone watching porn is not a porn watcher forever. Porn is something that can be stopped, but the key is that it is a compulsion, and a compulsion is something that compels you to do something against your will. And so the key is there is when an urge or a trigger happens and it enters your thoughts, it is something that you are then compelled to do, even if you know this is something you don't want to do, it just kind of takes over. So the part of that is any program that is going to solve it has to understand that the you cannot do it by thinking your way out of it. And so most programs that try to solve porn look at porn as the problem. And the key there is that porn is not the problem. Porn is a surface issue that, and the real problem is what lies underneath. In most marriage cases, communications problems we hear about, money issues, we hear about arguing, communication, we hear about all those topics. Again, all of those are surface issues that are high, and the problem is something that's really below. And so when we talk about being the problem, we have to get to the cause. What is happening with the person? And there's usually three categories that I find that usually are the core problems. So in one or a combination of these is what leads somebody to develop, to have a porn compulsion. First one is their needs are not being met. Their needs are not being met. And so oftentimes I ask someone, okay, well, tell me about your needs. And perhaps for everybody watching, think about what are your needs, and even your needs in marriage or your needs in life. And you can think about, most people come up with 2 topics, 3, 4, maybe 5.
Yeah.
And that's a good starting point. But in my programs and the exercises that I help people through is there are 13 personal needs. And they fall into 3 categories: the love needs, the emotional needs, and the human needs. And combined, there's 13 different needs there. And so when someone meets most of your needs, you're connected with them. And this is where a lot of times relationships, how they start, is that when you're dating, you're spending time together. You're doing things for that other person. You're having intimate conversations with them. You're giving them gifts. You're doing certain things to build them up, to make them feel good. Those are different needs that oftentimes we stop doing after we get married. It's like we've won. We're now married, and then we stop doing the things that we did during our dating period. And so when you know that you have these 13 different needs, the next step is, what are the vehicles that the person likes to have in order to fulfill that particular need. I like to take a look and see what are 5 different ways that your partner likes to fulfill each need. So if there's 13 different needs, that's 65 different ways a partner can fulfill the needs of their other partner.
65.
Show me a husband or a wife with a list of 65 different ways to show appreciation, love, affection, all of that, personal needs around the home. All of that is part of that. That's where a real connection can come from. So a man watching porn it can be one of the core problems, is that his needs are not being met by his wife, and that is happening because of the images he's seeing. It could be the significance he gains from looking at so many, fantasizing that he's with all of those women, fantasizing that there's certain body types or there could be things about that is attracting him to that that is not happening elsewhere. So one of the things that we have to do when it comes to these needs is help the partner understand each other's needs and try to do a better job providing the needs for the partner. But that's just one of the categories. So number 2, we often find men they understand that they are not fulfilling the purpose for their higher power. So they're not connecting with God, with a universe. They're not connecting with the someone who they worship in the way that they know is consistent with their beliefs. Imagine if someone thinking and reading scripture and reading about sexual perversion, and they know that describes them, and yet they try to say that this is who they are. They try to put on that image, that face when they go to church, when they're going to services, when they're in a community with other people, and they put on this image that, yes, I am this, Christian, or this Jew, this Muslim, or whatever. And all of a sudden they know when they get home that they're not living up to those
up to the standard.
That hurts them internally and creates a lot of conflict. And so that leads us to the third category, and that is their own personal identity. And so when I ask people, and oftentimes I do this in one of my, in one of my early sessions, I'll ask them a very simple question. And I'll ask them, who are you?
Yeah.
And it's a basic question, but it's not what do you do. A lot of men will then say, well, I'm a stockbroker, or I'm a lawn care person, or I'm this or that, a chef or whatever. No, not what you do. What are your beliefs and values that describe you? And so this is where, when we talk about have them open up, most men who are watching porn will come back and tell me the image that they want to be, not necessarily who they are. And so they'll come back and say, well, I'm a loyal husband. I'm a creative person. I'm a loving husband. I do this, that, and they'll come up with several different things. Then I ask the killer question.
Tell us.
Yeah, how can you be a loving husband, a loyal husband, when you are pleasuring yourself to pictures of other women? That kind of shakes them to their core. Because now they understand this is not who I am.
Yeah.
My behavior, my act. And so that ties into the second category of the higher power. And so now we have to take a look at their identity. And that's where the solution lies. Not in the various programs that has them thinking about changing their habit. I mean, it's like playing whack-a-mole. Have you ever been to an amusement park or something, and there's that game where you've given like underneath, and when you start the game, a little critter will pop up, and you smack it down, and it pops up somewhere else. Smack it down, it pops up somewhere else. It's called whack-a-mole. That's what surface issues do when you're dealing with one surface issue after another, after another, after another. But the real problem, the real core, is ultimately lies with their needs, with their continuity, with their serving a higher power, and with their own beliefs and their own identity as to who they are. And so that's where we have to address, is that part of the program. Is something, any program that says, we're just going to work on your thinking process, we're going to work on having you change your habits, cannot work. Cannot work.
So on that note, Mark, what would you think is the length of a couple that's trying to heal from porn addiction? How long will it take for that marriage to heal?
That's, so I get that question a lot, actually. So anytime someone is having issues, we live in a society that is microwave fast. We want quick results. We want the quick treatment. Now, oftentimes a lot of programs, they don't treat the real problem. Someone wakes up with a headache in the morning. What's the first thing that they do? Typically, they'll go to the medicine cabinet and take an Excedrin, an Advil, a Tylenol, a Bayer, some kind of pain reliever.
Yeah.
Next day, they wake up with a headache. They do the same thing over again. Third day, they wake up with a headache. They're doing the same exact thing. I'm an avid tennis player. I play a lot of in tournaments and leagues. Common ailment for tennis players, tennis elbow. And so what happens to the typical tennis player who gets tennis elbow? They'll take some ibuprofen, they'll put the strap around their elbow, and then they'll take more ibuprofen afterwards. All of these things treat symptoms rather than treating the core problem.
Yeah.
And so if we're talking about how long it takes to resolve something, again, we're not talking about a treatment. We have to be talking about what is going to serve the core problem. And to be perfectly honest, there's no one single answer for that to say it always takes 2 weeks, it takes 3 months, it takes 1 year. But there is a process that all marriage healing goes through. And it's a 3-step process. And so the first step of the process is receiving what I call a spark. A spark is like the light bulb goes off. So you're hearing something new. You read a particular scripture that touches you to your core. You're getting some information that changes your mindset of how you think. That spark is the first thing that has to happen. No marriage is going to change unless there is a spark and someone has a real, all of a sudden they get this, I have to do this. I have to follow this. The second part after the spark happens is a decision has to be made. So you have to make a decision that I am going to follow this new path. I'm going to stop watching the porn. I'm going to do this. I'm going to start following according to my standards. You have to make that decision. And then the third part of it is consistent action. And this is something that ask anybody who feels that hurt from someone else. And when they could come back and say, hey, I've changed. I'm a new person. I had the spark. I made a decision. But what does it take to show you, to actually demonstrate to you that it has actually happened? Is consistent action over time. And so how long does it take to heal a marriage? As quickly as they could have that spark, they could have that decision and show to their partner that they are making changes. And so that's, it's not a definitive straight answer in one way, but that's the process that it takes to go through a healing.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you are here and you are thinking of somebody, just tag them, send a message, share if you care. Now internet is easily accessible and to some extent free Wi-Fi. If you are in London, most parts where you go, there's free Wi-Fi. And so what that means is porn is easily accessible. If you look at the media as well, it's kind of promoting it. Everything has been sexualized, so it doesn't sound like it's just at our fingertips. You go on the internet, the first thing which you bump into is somebody who is naked, and they're kind of calling you and inviting you.
That's right.
And Mark is just telling us that this thing is a very terrible thing, especially when it comes to marriages. It destroys marriages. So if you are watching right now, we would encourage you to share with somebody, send them a text, send them a WhatsApp with the link so that they will also be privileged to watch the link. Mark, unlike those who are addicted to drugs and probably having other challenges, how easy is it for somebody to open up that they're having a challenge with pornography and they're looking for help?
It oftentimes takes, I come across men who come to this resolution themselves, and a lot of it is what stage they are in with pornography. So the first stage that a lot of men they might be, might have been involved with it as a single person. And so at that point, it's only affecting themselves. But then after they get married and they start to recognize that, this porn habit of mine, this compulsion is not serving me with my wife. I want to have a happier marriage. I want to make sure she is happy in this marriage. Oftentimes then they become aware that the pornography is a problem. That's stage one, awareness of it. At this stage, most men will try to quit cold turkey. They might go to start a 12-step program. They might talk to some other people. They'll do some research on the internet. Again, most of the advice that is out there is common advice, and that's all about how to change habits by thinking your way through, or thinking that what do I have to do to change my focus. So then after that fails a number of times, and usually what happens is a man will try to quit, and then within days, weeks, or months afterwards, they discover I get into a porn loop back. So it's a high recidivism rate for pornography. They quit, and days, weeks, or months later, they get back into it. Something triggers, and it could be a new trigger. It could be a new urge, something new, that because that neural pathway, the brain chemicals are still at work. And so they get back, into it. That brings them to a second stage of frustration. They get very frustrated with themselves. They get frustrated that they can't do something. Men have strong egos. And so when they get frustrated about that they can't do something, it hurts. That just builds that internal conflict, that builds that internally this anger that can come out at any time. And that's where ultimately, after they try a couple more things, they might try counseling, they might try a number of other programs. But when those still do not work, then it leads to the third stage, and that is hopelessness. So when it reaches hopelessness, I'm sorry, that's where it becomes to the point where he doesn't care anymore. And that's where he often feels that there is no solution. He's tried everything. He's tried so many different things, except the things that work on those three core parts of the problem: their own identity, their own their higher power, and they're getting their needs met. So without those things, that's they could walk through that process, and that process ultimately leading to hopelessness is very sad. But the good part is that when someone goes through the programs, there are programs being taught mostly by coaches, not so much by counselors, but definitely by coaches, that go through like a 6-step process that does help with those three categories and help with that identity, that helps them resolve that. And there's processes that do this. It's not new. Here's the sad, if you really look at it, the sad part of this is that these programs have been around for decades, that there are people out there using these techniques to help people through addictions, compulsions, phobias. And it's also being used to help people as like life coaches, to help them achieve more in their life. There are business people paying serious dollars to high-end coaches because they want to achieve more in their life. And a lot of it comes down to life balance. They can be very good at their work environment, but their home environment could be challenging. So they take these, go to a coach that can help them with their life balance and help achieve more things in their home environment. And it's the same multi-step process, about a 6-step process that people go through. And what it does, it alters the thinking to the point where it is your subconscious, then your values, your beliefs. It works on the person to their core. It isn't working on the conscious level of their thoughts. It's working on who they are as a person. And so that when it comes time to where they face a trigger or face an urge, they reject it. So imagine this for a second, okay? And so I've got a couple examples here. So imagine a friend invites you out to a party. And it's a big party. They rent out a club. I mean, it's that big. So they go out to this club, and your friend taps you on the shoulder and waves you on over. Hey, come on over to this other table. He sits you down at a table, at a chair, a couple other people are around, and right in front of you are 2 lines of cocaine that are drawn. And he welcomes you to participate. Have it, it's yours. What do?
I don't get it.
I decline.
No. So you reject it. It's right there. It's in front of you. It's available for the taking. But you reject it because it's not who you are.
Yeah.
Same thing goes. You have a squabble with your neighbor. A neighbor, I mean serious squabble. You are, to the point where something absolutely has to be done. And you realize, okay, the only thing to do then is to take a knife or a gun and go over them and kill them, right?
Yeah.
Same thing. No, most people, that isn't even close to, they would never even think about that kind of thing. That's because it is who they are. They reject the concept at the subconscious level. And that's what these programs do. This program that helps men quit porn for good permanently is because then it conditions them to look at porn as something they would never even consider doing. And the programs are available. And yet so many have a hard time finding perhaps where it is, or they go for certain things. But yes, the catch is, if there is a catch, is that it does take an independent third party to look at it, to talk with you, to go through the exercises, because it takes that person then to really drill down and to find out who you are and to bring that out. And so that's, if anything, that's the catch. But these programs have been out there for decades. And that's the hope everyone should walk away from this call, is that the programs are there. And it has to work on the subconscious level to reject pornography before, you could be faced with it then, just like the lines of cocaine on that table. You see it, it's available to you, but you reject it. Same thing.
That's why you are here, Mark. Resources. For us, we'll send some links at the end of the broadcast. You guys can get in touch with Mark Jala. He's got a lot of resources. And like we mentioned before, he is a certified marriage coach with 40 years of experience. Guys, if you have any questions, please do type the questions so that we can ask Mark before he comes offline. Just want to ask this question, not that I'm saying that we have to play detective or anything like that, but what could be some of the visible signs that your spouse is engaging in pornography? Some people may not even know until they walk on their husband and they watch him watching. They see him watching on a computer
So a lot of times, the wife will catch, the husband from time to time on the computer looking at these inappropriate images. But short of that, short of catching him in the act, the flags to look for generally resolves around lack of intimacy, a lack of not wanting sex. A lot of sexless marriages are because the husband is pleasuring himself through porn. And so he knows that he cannot get the erection, or something else is going on, that he knows he has to think about those porn images. And so a lot of times to avoid any issues with the wife, he just, I'm not interested. I'm not in the mood. I've got a headache, whatever. He comes up with excuses, and ultimately it will lead to a sexless marriage, or very, very close to it. Sex becomes very rare in these. Sometimes you'll see change in his behavior, change in the way. One of the things that porn does is the man takes a negative view about women. Women are degraded because of pornography. he could be interested in more aggressive sex acts. That's something that, because a lot of pornography, eventually a lot of men, they watch certain things, but then they start desiring more. They start desiring other things. And so it leads oftentimes to animal abuse. It leads to the sadomasochism. It leads to, he will trivialize rape. It gets to that extent, to where he starts looking at these violent acts as being normal. He looks at women as objects, not for intimacy. And so when so the wife can listen to how he talks about women, how he refers to other women, what are some of his things that he's wanting in the bedroom, if they have, a bedroom life. Those are some of the flags to be looking for. That was an excellent question, because that's something that all women need to be aware of, and not, and so, so let's say it's a sexless marriage and he's saying that he's just not interested. One of her reactions might be, well, let's go see a doctor. He's going to reject that because he knows what the doctor's going to find out. So he will reject, going to see the doctor. That's another red flag. Not that men like to go see the doctor anyway, but
yes.
Yeah. If you are watching right now, to be fair, we are not sending you to be a detective in your marriage, but you just have to be watchful. I'm a follower of the Bible, and the Bible says, be as wise as serpent and as faithful as dove. So in whatever you're doing, if you're in a marriage and you start to see some of these symptoms which Mark have just highlighted, be careful, seek help. Seek help whilst it's early,
before it reaches a hopelessness, like
Mark have just alluded. May I also say Christmas came early for those who are watching right now. Mark got a book that he is giving to us, so the link will be right here on Further Together. You just go there and download the book. He has a downloadable book that we can also read and get to know some of these things, the statistics, some of the symptoms, and some of the things that we cannot be able to cover right now.
Yeah, that's right. So guys, do stay tuned and catch the replay as well, so that you can get access to the resources. And Mark, like we rightly said, his details will be on the live broadcast, so you can get in touch. If you need help, get in touch before it gets worse. And like Mark always says, is that it's not a mystery to quit porn. It is doable. It can be done. A lot of people have come out of it. And if you are struggling, or if you know anyone that's struggling, there's help available. Just want Mark to talk to the singles. There may be people that find pornography as a sexual outlet because they are single and they are burning. So they go and they watch. What could be the dangers of a single watching pornography?
Well, the more that they watch pornography, the more they are making that neural pathway very strong. So it's something that once you start, since it is so difficult to quit as a compulsion, that it's something that it's going to affect future relationships. It's going to affect your view of other women, and this could even affect you in the workplace environment. So even if you're single, this is not something to play around with. This is something to get resolved. And the same programs work. We just have, we don't have to go through helping the wife and the marriage relationship. We could just work on you as an individual and your particular needs of how you have them met, how you view the higher power, and also meeting your individual core identity, having that resolved, so that you're living consistent life. So yes, so whether it is single or the married couples, and especially with the married couples, the one key point that I apologize for not mentioning earlier, but that in a marriage environment, porn is not one problem. It is not having him quit porn and then everything magically turns fine. Porn is actually three problems in a marriage environment. So you've
Wow.
got the wife is harmed. The wife has these post-traumatic stress disorder like symptoms that she needs help with that. That doesn't go away magically when he stops, porn. Plus, it's going to take time to show that he's not in a porn loop back. So it's going to take time for him to prove that he has permanently quit. But she's got these other issues that have to be addressed. She's got trust issues with him, anger issues, frustration issues, all of these behaviors, the way that he has treated her, she is hurt. She is harmed by this. And so the coach can work with her one-on-one to work with those particular issues and to help her heal through this whole entire process. The final part is the marriage itself. The marriage is harmed because he's been doing certain things. She is harmed. Now the marriage, we can look at it actually as an opportunity, because this is where now is a time you could rebuild your marriage and it could be better than ever before. As both of you heal, you can then be working on a new framework, a new foundation of your marriage, and it could be stronger than ever. So that's the hope out of it.
Oh, yes. Everybody can have a fresh start. You can work on a marriage and bring back the spark.
Yes.
Mark, we are so thankful for you to,
Wow.
affording us this time, joining us on this platform. But before we say goodbye to you, it is our ritual here on Further Together. Mama Priscilla and I will always say anyone who comes here must give us a homework so that we will go there and increase the spark. Our spark doesn't come from porn. So, could you be kind enough to give us a homework or tips before we say goodbye to our viewers?
So some homework or some tips. One piece of homework would be download the free report. That will give you a lot of the facts, a lot of the information that you need. That's why I provide it for you free. That capsulizes on my blog, happymarriagecoaching.com. In the blog section, there's much more details and a lot more information about marriages, and also about how to be quitting pornography. So one of the first things we do, get your free report, take a look at that. If anything, think about those questions that I posed during this call. So think about, who are you? How would you actually define yourselves? Grab a piece of paper, grab a pencil or pen, and write down what are your values? What are your beliefs? And how are you First, you're going to write down a bunch of things, but then the question comes down to, are you actually living those? And then it takes time this is not an easy exercise. This is something that takes a little bit of time. On my blog, I have, there's 3 articles out there about the 3 different groups of needs. So you could determine your 13 personal needs for free by going to my blog, taking a look at the love needs, the emotional needs, and then the human needs. So that's another part. So there you can start do those exercises to determine, what are your actual needs. This gives you things to talk about with your partner. When you now have more words to describe. I was on a call the other day, and I asked this man, what are his needs? He said to be intimate. And so, okay, beyond that, nope, that's it. That's everything. That's all I need. So when we go through the exercises, now you have more words, more ways to describe what it is that you actually need. And oftentimes that opens up the communication doors, so you could have more good, solid communications with your partner. That's a lot of homework, actually.
We've got a homework, we've got free resources, we've got it all today. Thank you so much, Mark, for coming on board. Guys, help is available. Do make use of all the resources and the help that we are making available for you. This is an issue that needs to be dealt with. If you are struggling, don't keep it to yourself. A lot of people, a lot of Christians, they think they are alone in this. And by that, they die and they suffer in silence. There's a lot of conflict within themselves and within their marriage. But these are issues that can be resolved. Do reach out to us if you need any further information. We can signpost you, and do get in touch with Mark as well. We will make his details available. Do download his book, get more information, get knowledge, get wisdom, get a better relationship.
Sounds
What
awesome, Priscilla.
Yes. What more shall we say apart from saying thank you so much to Mark, who has been our guest tonight, all the way from Virginia, United States of America. And Mark is available for you, our viewers. If you want to utilize him, go ahead. If you have any questions, please send them in. And to those who always follow us, I can see the sharers and the fans,
the elders, the top
elders, the
fans.
pastors. I'm seeing pastors and elders are here as well. Thank you very much for giving us your precious possession, which is your time. And after this program, please share with others. We know there are some who may not be able to be watching due to their other commitments. Please share with them. They can have what do you call it? A replay. Yes, so they can catch the replay to benefit from it. What more shall we say apart from saying thank you so much for giving us your precious possession? Time permitting, God willing, we'll meet again next week, same time. For me and my beautiful wife Priscilla, together with our guest Mark, we're signing out. God bless you. Mwah.
Thank you, guys.